And Mr. Savage, how are you?
I am not too bad, thank you. I'm pretty well. How are you doing?
Well, what is it? 3 o'clock in your place now? I know it's usually you've got that strange time zone.
It is 3 o'clock. In fact, I'm just a few hours away from heading to the airport for a weekend in Scotland. So my suitcase is sitting next to me, but there's plenty of work to be done before then.
That has got to be such a cushy gig because you're talking to us when we're at our weakest, and you're rolling. So talking to everybody in the morning is no big deal for you guys, huh?
Well, you say that, but this is the mid-afternoon slump when you just need a little bit of extra cup of coffee just to get you through. You know what I mean?
Sure, indeed. So let's talk about the latest in Israel. They're banning the United Nations chief, saying he's anti-Israel and biased against the country, so he gets the boot?
Yeah, what a diplomatic mess this is. As you know, Iran launched 180 ballistic missiles at Israel a couple of days ago. The initial response from the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres was a brief statement calling it the latest attacks in the Middle East and broadly condemning the conflict as escalation after escalation, and then going on to criticize Israel for its actions in Gaza and the West Bank. Now, Israel did not like that statement. Its foreign minister said anyone who cannot unequivocally condemn Iran's heinous attacks on Israel does not deserve to step foot on Israeli soil. Accordingly, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was declared persona non grata in Israel. Now, I should say he rode back the next day. He said he strongly condemns the massive missile attack, but the damage was done.
Wow. I don't think this has ever happened before, has it?
I cannot remember it happening, and the spokesman for the United Nations was asked if he can remember it happening. He says in his 24 years of the organization, he can't either. So it is very unusual. It's not likely to affect the work of the United Nations. In fact, the United Nations says they will continue their contacts with Israel. They'll continue to work with Israel, inverted commas, because they need to. The UN says that it does incredibly important work in Gaza, incredibly important work in the region, and can play an important role for security and stability. But it's going to have to do that with even less cooperation with the Israelis.
Well, now, where do we go from here? We had the Iranian attack. The Israelis are pondering what they're going to do next. Have they contacted you?
No, they've not come and asked for my opinion, but they have been talking to the U.S. government, and the U.S. government's been talking back to them. Yesterday, President Biden was asked under the wing of Air Force One if he would support an Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear sites. President Biden gave that a flat no. He said any action should be proportionate. So given he's saying that publicly, you can imagine that behind the scenes, his administration is going to be making it clear to the Israelis that taking on Iranian nuclear sites will be off limits. The next question, are the Israelis listening to that? Because they haven't always done what the United States has told them to do in the last 12 months.
All right. Did you catch Osprey versus Ricochet last night?
No, because here it's not shown until Friday night. So
you won't be disappointed.
Tomorrow night when I'm up in Scotland, I will be tuning in.
Yeah, you won't be disappointed.
I can't imagine I would be. I don't think I've ever been disappointed by Will Ospreay or Ricochet for that matter.
And you saw the Osprey documentary, right?
Yeah, well, I have actually, yes.
Okay, and you recommended it. That's why I bought it for $6, so I'm going to watch it.
Okay, good. Yeah, like I say, he doesn't disappoint.
You could say the same about you, Jonathan Savage. Have a safe trip this weekend.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Our great friend, Jonathan Savage. Mr. Thiel, thank you for joining us, sir. Always a pleasure.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me on. I'm still sort of thinking about Douglas Emhoff. Probably the worst husband ever. MSNBC says he was redefining masculinity. And this is, by the way, for those who are not familiar, this is the hubby of potential future President Kamala Harris. So,
please go ahead, Peter.
He sleeps with the babysitter. Okay? We've all fallen short. No one's perfect, right? He impregnates her. That's not good. Wives, as a general thing, don't like that. Any of those things wives don't like. Then comes out that he was dating some woman who was at a party talking to a man, and he hauled off and punched her around a little bit. So this is going to be the first gentleman, apparently. And I want to know, do you think he's ever punched Kamala Harris?
You know, I know if he were talking to you, you would have enough guts to ask him that question.
Yeah, I would not pause in asking such a question. Once you smack her around a little bit and apologize, is the marital relations over the top? I have no idea.
Well, some people like that.
I know. It's some people like to be hit. And I'm just going to say this, just for me, Kevin. If love involves any type of angry assault, it's probably not that good.
Well, the timing of this report could not be worse since it's Domestic Violence Prevention Month.
Well, good. And maybe Dougie has to do an interview talking about why he learned that punching women's bad.
And let me give you the old Sean Hannity. Could you imagine if this were Donald Trump or J.D. Vance? It'd be everywhere.
Yeah, of course it would be. And ironically, it's as far as I know, neither of those guys have punched someone around. And then you have Tim Walz, who that debate performance was beyond bizarre. Beyond bizarre on Tuesday night. And I'm really concerned. I'm just going, okay, the Democrats have, there's probably, 50 people who are qualified to be a vice presidential nominee. You have people in Congress, Senate, governors, yada, yada, yada. And Kamala Harris finds a guy who, by all accounts now, should be about 90th on that list. Lied about his bio. Has made up stories. Looks totally nuts. Runs out like he's Chris Farley. It's his wife. There was one thing, but there has been a lot of footage of when Walz and his wife are at these events. And they're on something. They've got to be. Now, I'm not the Captain Sobriety, and I'm not necessarily an expert on chemical dependency, but these two people look like they are on something. Am I wrong here, Kevin?
No, I agree with you.
I'm just going, and Kamala Harris, her laughing jibes, just come across like somebody who's had a couple of wines at a dinner party. I've been at dinner parties with wine women before. That's what they are like. It's just bizarre.
It is. Our great
we
friend.
live in a very, very...
We do. Our great friend Peter Thiel, sorry for stepping on you. Where should we begin? I love where you just run with the things. Do you want to go back to the debate? And again, you as someone who has worked in Minnesota media, politics at the highest levels, what do you make of Walz?
I have actually... several of the people who are political reporters in the Twin Cities were there when I worked in the Twin Cities 25 years ago. These are people I'm friends with on Facebook. I'm connected to them on Twitter. And I have wanted to say to them, and I don't think I'll do it on social media, I think I have to actually be standing in front of them and say, didn't you guys vet this guy at all? What the hell? What's going on with media? Why aren't you looking at somebody who wants to be governor and finding out, okay, they've got this bio. You could spend an hour on it and poke holes in it. It's the media's job is to confirm that that people are saying that people who are running are who they say they are, and it's obvious Tim Walz is not. He was not for governor. He was not for Congress. He's obviously not for vice president of the United States. His performance was bizarre. His facial expressions were beyond crazy. He called himself a knucklehead. He basically admitted to lying on his bio. And we have a lot of mainstream media people, because they hate Orange Man so much that they will go out and totally give this idiot a pass.
And we saw that on display. How would you relate or evaluate Senator Vance's performance?
I thought he was very, very good. The only thing that I didn't think he did well with was when the January 6th question was brought up. I don't think he had a prepared answer. I don't think that it made a lot of sense. And there is a good answer, for the thing. Number one, it was not an insurrection. It was mainly a bunch of 60-year-olds. And I can relate. I'm around that age, who has been to the Golden Corral a few times. I've been to Golden Corral a few times. It's amazing. Does Boise still have a Sizzler, by the way?
We lost our Sizzler about 6 months ago.
I've been to a Sizzler. I'm an amply proportioned feller. Most of these people who went through the nation's capital on January 6th were portly sightseers, and really all you could really hit them up with, instead of insurrection, which was so stupid, trespassing, and at the most. And so the answer would be for J.D. Vance was saying, well, of course there wasn't an insurrection. There was an insurrection. Donald Trump would have led and would have gone out of his way to make sure that never happened. Well, of course, Trump didn't stand in the way of it. And, of course, Trump left office. I mean, my goodness. And this is the same party complaining about this, the media complaining about January 6th, are those who are looking at the other way internationally when you have a dictator like Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela actually lose an election, and he's still in charge, and he ain't going nowhere.
What about the moderators? What about Margaret Brennan?
Every one of them is going to be exactly the same, because these people come from sort of an insular group of people that smell their own exhaust, and they think of themselves as bright type people. One of the other problems, by the way, Kevin, doesn't get talked about enough. And you've seen this. You've seen this personally. There are a lot of members of the media who want to be considered cool to the elite class so they get to go to the cocktail parties. In Washington, D.C., the cocktail party, in being invited to the right party, is huge. If you are a U.S. Senator or a Congressperson, you do not have to pay for your own meal, because there are free meals. There are cocktail parties. There are things going on every day of the week, and sometimes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And being a media person, to get to these events, most of them automatically co-opt their whatever semblance of morality they have in their bodies, in their corrupt, blackened souls, that allows them to go out and cover these people in a way that they should be covered. Again, it's the deal with media is this. You want to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Anyone who's in Congress, anyone who's the President of the United States, they are the comfortable. The American taxpayer, we are the afflicted. And by the way, I never complained when people asked Trump, when he was President of the United States, tough questions. It's what should happen with every President of the United States. They should all answer very tough questions. They all should be pushed. And that's important.
Yeah, instead of comforted, our great friend Peter Thiel joining us. How do you evaluate what's happening with the disaster area relief, and how big of an impact could it have on the election, sir?
Well, it's obvious that what has happened in North Carolina especially is so devastating. I'm not besmirching what happened to the good people in Georgia and South Carolina and Tennessee, but you have towns that were erased in North Carolina. And what I don't understand about, obviously, Georgia and North Carolina are swing states. Seemingly, you would think that the Democrats would have been on the ground there. Kamala Harris, Dougie, Timmy Walz would have been on the ground almost immediately as once everything was safe there. They have not been. They have ran. And I just remember back to 2004 where everybody was on George W. Bush for flying over Katrina's recovery instead of being on the ground immediately. The mainstream media, they are silent on the lack of response. And Joe Biden actually saying this line: well, there's no cell service and no power. We'll tell them to use a telephone. Yeah, and helpful hint, Joe Biden. Nobody has a telephone anymore.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fascinating to see how this plays out. What about Jack Smith's revelations, the October surprise? What do you make of that, Peter Thiel?
It's meaningless at this point. It's Jack Smith, obviously, and the U.S. Justice Department under Merrick Garland have become political hit squads instead of looking for justice. If Donald Trump was truly guilty of these crimes, they would have gone to indict him in 2021. They did not indict him until he entered the race to run to win the presidency back.
And we've never seen anything like this. By the way, our great friend Peter Thiel joining us, Kevin Miller in the Morning, KIDO Talk Radio, talking about politics and branding and everything else that matters. But we've never seen anything like this. Again, as someone who is a great talent and you're a great coach of talent, you should have been a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Maybe you would still like to be. Maybe you are. You take a look at Donald Trump, sir, and you think to yourself, what is he? Most of us would have pieced out and, gone to the Oregon coast or Orange Beach or something of that nature, but he continues to fight.
I have had, I've been in the room with Trump once, and it was about 2012. Never met him. But I was in the room with him and Melania. But I've met these people that live for challenges. Warren Buffett, who's in his 90s, is still running his corporation, Berkshire Hathaway, on a daily basis. You have Rupert Murdoch, who just in the last couple of years has stepped back a little bit, but from all reports is day-to-day running his empire. Guys that get and gals that get to that level, one of the reasons why they're so uber successful is that they don't know the word quit. They may have things fail. They may have things not go as well, but they don't know quit. And most of us, and quite frankly, if I'm being honest, this is me, and probably most of the people listening to KIDO right now, is that, we look for the day that one day we'll be able to finish our careers and whatever it may be, get a cabin in the woods, be on a beach, and live out our golden years in peace, without stress and without huge challenges other than aging. A guy like Trump, Warren Buffett, you look at Elon Musk, I don't know if that guy sleeps. And they're built differently. And I am really kind of inspired by them because, you're right. Donald Trump would have quit. Normal people would have quit a long time before that.
Yeah. When you were part of the New York media scene, what was that like? How is it different from all the other places that you've worked?
It's kind of an interesting deal. When I went into the New York media, one of the things people from like you, Kevin, and other people that I've known from different things saying, wow, the talent must be so incredible. And I'm going, no. I said, actually, the talent is no better. Most of the people that get into New York media either went to Columbia Journalism School or they went to Syracuse. They worked outlier from the big market TV stations or radio stations, and they eventually got the call. That's the majority of people in New York media. The interesting thing about New York, again, another place for dinner parties and stuff like that, is that I had the opportunity to go to a couple of cocktail parties where there were a lot of hedge fund guys, a lot of the Wall Street high-end type stuff. And they're all sort of the same, Kevin. They all come up to you and say, hi, I'm Joe Blow. I went to Dartmouth. I'm Joe Blow, and I went to Wharton. And that's how they introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Peter Thiel. I went to, I went to Ham and Egg or U. And people get just gobsmacked about these guys and gals who have these uber exclusive educations. And believe me, I'm all about education. I'm all about that. I have found that their conversation are as vapid as any conversation I've ever had. I had the opportunity, and I got invited to go to the Harvard Club for breakfast one time. And I've had breakfast at Waffle House with the truckers.
Right.
I found the conversation with the truckers to be much more interesting. I found them much better read. I found no pretentiousness. I found real conversation with real people. And when I've been around those people at the high end, most of them are just playing like they're smart. And if you have to play like you're smart, you're a moron.
A couple final thoughts for our great friend Peter Thiel joining us on KIDO Talk Radio. Did you meet Bobby Axelrod while you were there in New York, from Billions?
No. I was at a party with Rupert Murdoch. I met him.
No way.
Yeah.
And knowing you just walked right up to him.
Absolutely. And it was a party he was hosting. It was for a media thing, for a book that he published. And why I was invited, I have no frickin' idea. So I went up, introduced myself. Introduced my wife at the time. Had a brief conversation with him. He couldn't have been more pleasant, but he was a tad bit aloof. I got to meet Bloomberg, who is also a little bit aloof. John Catsimatidis, who is a big grocer, who's now gone into media, who owns a refinery. He is the least pretentious of the billionaires I've gotten to be around. He's in the "I'm happy to be here" club. Couldn't be happier.
Peter Thiel, a final question for you, since media is your life. Does Fox News miss Roger Ailes, and what do you make of Newsmax?
Roger Ailes probably stayed too long. It had to evolve. He obviously brilliantly built it and was okay. He had a problem. He was a little bit of a sexual harasser. Who hasn't been? No, I'm joking. And I think that it goes through. My issue with Newsmax is that they have all the tools there, but to be that all, that they don't have the infrastructure. If there's a breaking news story, if there's something really big going on, don't turn on Newsmax. They likely won't even be mentioning it. They don't have the infrastructure with local TV stations, local reporters, local stringers throughout the country. The commentary is very nice. I know people who work there. They love it. But, when I'm looking at a news operation, I want to know if all of a sudden there's a school shooting, or if all of a sudden there were shots fired at a former president. I want them to be wall-to-wall, boots on the ground, talking about it.
Well, it is amazing how far they've come. Chris Reddy has done a good job. Anything else you'd like to share with us? How can we get a hold of you to read your thoughts and your opinions, sir?
Vote no on ranked choice voting. It sucks. It's the Democrats' plan to the elected Democrat club instead of actual democracy. And you can contact me at Peter Thiele, at PeterThiele, on the X. I always appreciate interacting with KIDO listeners. And as always, Kevin, always a conversation. Always enjoy your conversation. Give me a call, by the way, in the next couple of days here. I have something to share with you.
I certainly will, sir. And we apologize for not getting you on at your usual slot. We'll make sure we don't do that again.
Sounds good, my friend.
Thank you, Peter. Take care.
Yep, thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye. Our great friend Peter Thiele. Always appreciate his insightful and analysis. And TLC. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, right. Well,
what do you make of that Peter Thiele guy, by the way?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I'd like to know what he thinks about God. I'd like to know what he thinks about Jesus Christ. That'd tell me a lot about him.
Well, we'll ask him that the next time we have him on, sir.
Yeah, his motive is, making a living being a media dude. But anyway, I'd like to know if his motive is truth or being a big shot. So anyway, about the red light thing, I think it revolves around whether they're doing it for revenue or for safety. And so the motive of the people behind this, I think it's revenue. And if it's revenue, it's not right. They have to show that the red light system, traffic cameras, really are saving accidents and lives. And if it isn't doing that, then I'm not for it. But I don't know. I'm not this Mr. Statistics on the accidents and all of whatever's going on. You'd have to go to the police departments, and they'd have to keep statistics on that, but by the way, anyway. And maybe they don't keep very good statistics. But anyway, I want to say something generally about all of the problems in the world. The problems we're having in the world are because Jesus Christ is not in our hearts and minds and in our whole communities. And we have fake Christianity. And fake Christianity ruins Christianity. And you take like the United Church of Christ, the ELCA, Episcopals, Methodists, and there's a lot of them, and they just are traditional, kind of go to church on Sunday, and a lot of people, Mormons, Catholics, Baptists, all kinds of people. It's just a Sunday kind of a thing. It's never going to.
Now you're calling out people. Look, I know a place where you can go to church and you can have a cup of coffee in church and you can just kind of sit out and listen to the band. And it's one of the more popular churches in our area.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you go to church to get a cup of coffee and listen to the band.
I think you should go there and start calling in the hellfire and the brimstone.
No, you don't want to do that. You just want to tell them that, listen, in the next world, do you want to just live with the people that drink coffee and listen to the band, or do you want to live with the people that say, hey, Grandma so and so, or this old lady down the street somewhere, she can't mow her lawn. She has weeds all over the place. Her house needs painted. Let's do something about that. Or let's start a Christian-based business where everybody's going to be a Christian, there's going to be Christian morals, and we're going to take care of our health, education, welfare, recreation, and medicine. But you don't hear any of that. But that's what's going to happen in the next world. It isn't going to be, fake Christianity.
Okay, pro-life, we covered that. We continue on. Let's go to Pam in Boise joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you for the call, Pam. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. It's been a while since I've called in, but this morning I'm so outraged that I said, all right, I'm calling in. Couple things. I'll be quick. But with Peter Thiel, he's so surprised that they picked Tim Walz. I mean, if people don't understand pattern recognition, let me tell you, Obama needed somebody stupider than him, and he picked Biden. Biden needed someone stupider than him, and he picked Kamala. And Kamala needed someone stupider than her, and that's how we got Tim Walz. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because the biggest story in the country right now should be what's happening in North Carolina with the FEMA funds. I mean, Harris finally gets on TV yesterday and says that they can apply for $750. You've got to be kidding me. First of all, how are they going to even apply for it? They're flooded. And Mayorkas comes out and says that FEMA doesn't have enough money. Well, guess what? Now we know where all this money came from for these illegal aliens, and yes, they're illegal aliens, where they got all their gift cards and where all their funding came from. They have funneled $1 billion out of FEMA money to pay for these people. It is an absolute outrage, and how anybody can vote for this does not know what time it is in this country. So when you go in and you cast your vote, I want everybody to think about one thing. Donald Trump has raised money for these flood victims, and Kamala Harris raised money for BLM rioters. And that's what time it is in this country. And how anybody can vote for this does not understand where we are in this country.
Pam, appreciate the call. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat.
We appreciate her. She needs to call in more often. Uh-oh. It's this guy. Lee Joe joins us now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, sir.
How about those red light cameras coming in?
I want to hit on that because it's all related. But the response in the east to this hurricane, the absolute failures of FEMA, like I said, nothing the government does is coordinated, relevant, or helpful to the people anymore. There's volunteer helicopters out there doing search and rescue missions actively and taking supplies to people. And Kamala comes to comes in for a visit, and they shut down the entire airspace for 7 hours of daylight when these people are, trying and literally rescuing people still. And she's here. We have to stop this rescue effort. We're not seeing at all what's actually going on in North Carolina because the media is keeping it shoved down so that Kamala doesn't look as horrible and as incompetent as she is. There's the Cajun Navy's out there doing their thing, but FEMA has taken control of areas, and now you can't haul your trash to the dump from the hurricane that just wiped you out because FEMA will be there in 6 to 8 months to clean it up for you, and they've literally told private contractors just haul it back to the place where you found it and dump it in a pile. It's that bad. Your government is in that much control. A fire chief tells a helicopter to stop flying people into where he is, tells him he's going to be arrested because the fire chief doesn't have control of the rescue, and literally there are 2 people who still need to be helicoptered out, and the fire chief's threatening arrest for a civilian helicopter. Your government is out of control, which relates exactly back to cameras in Boise. Remember, Mayor McLean and Kamala Harris are card-carrying communists, literally card-carrying communists. You have a
now, what do you mean when
right.
card-carrying communists? Have you seen the cards that they're carrying, allegedly?
I've seen them. I've seen her celebrate communist holidays.
Well, that's not being
That
a
would be
card-carrying.
McLean.
That'd be not literally a card-carrying communist, though. Maybe she's a closet commie.
That doesn't make you closet. That makes you out.
But she doesn't have. She doesn't have a card.
Well, I don't know if they issue cards. Does the Republican Party issue cards?
I'm not really. Hold on. I'm not really in the good graces with the leadership of the Republican Party, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Well, I'm a Republican, or I've been accused of it.
I've been a Republican my entire life, but I think I'm on double secret probation thanks to them. So I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I think you and I lack the purity test with them, but oh well.
Well, one of us will do whatever the King's men say, whether or not it's a violation.
Okay,
of the
back to red light cameras because we only have 27 minutes here.
Yeah, the red light camera. You have what rights? You have a right to life and liberty, and that means you have a right to travel. You also have a 4th right, which prohibits the government from searches and seizures. Those cameras are an illegal search, and we can give up all the rights we want for safety. Remember, we've been warned of that. If you give up your rights for safety, you will have neither. And now we have these cameras for our safety. Well, that Fourth Amendment right to to make yourself secure in your persons does not give the government a right to take a picture of you in your vehicle, which is a search, going about what is your right to do, pursuing your life, your liberty, and then hunting you. They may be hunting you by mail, but then hunting you down for a victimless crime, which 99.99% of this is a victimless crime. Oh, but it'll save us from one wreck. There will be wrecks. There always are. This is intrinsic risk. Your safety is not guaranteed. Only your rights can be protected. Your safety is only relevant to your own action or the actions of others. But this giving up your safety, giving up your rights for safety.
Well, look, nobody gave it up. The Queen decided. She decided, and her useful idiots on the city council approved it. So I guess the game's over. Wormer won.
Correct. Yep. Fourth Amendment. Those are illegal and unconstitutional. It is not right. And
well, I think you've said that. You're repeating yourself, which is not very entertaining.
And what are her enforcers and this corrupt legal system that we're rolling under? What are they going to do? They're going to say, "Oh yeah, well the mayor said so."
Well, you got
Joe.
Kent and ACHD taking orders from the mayor, so we'll talk to him next hour, Lee Joe. Mike and Boise, hang on. Quick break. Kevin Miller.
G Insulation Studio. Traffic now picking up as you're coming on the freeway out of Canyon County into Ada County. Still finishing cleanup of 2 accidents right near milepost 57 and 56 going eastbound. So watch for those accidents there. Discover why Karcher Senior Living Community is so special. Visit Karcher SL.
436 580 KIDO. We're joined by ACHD Commissioner, wait for it, Kent Goldthorpe, everybody. Ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da.
I'm going to charge you double my regular talent fee.
Well, we've got your plaque for Employee of the Month here.
Oh, good. Just restore my parking place as well, and I'll be happy.
We would love to have you back. So how you been? We've been talking about you.
Just fine. Hasn't been a whole week since I was on last, but we try to create some news so that you consider important to have me on for a little embarrassment.
I know. You and I were going back and forth. I said, I don't see a release on Mayor McLean ordering you guys to put in the red light cameras. You go, you need a press release? And I go, well, I'm not going to hang out at the Boise City Council meetings, but apparently they didn't issue a release either.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. I didn't know how we were going to handle it. I didn't know if you were lurking in the Zoom meeting or anything else. So anyway, it's out there, and we weren't ordered to do anything. I think you do know that, though.
So for people that aren't familiar with this, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Well, what's going on is the incidence of problems, injuries, deaths, permanent disabilities, and everything else that come from people absolutely wantonly running red lights with impunity has reached an end as far as what we can do in law enforcement. ACHD can't do anything. We do happen to own all that hardware that's hanging over the intersections and streets, and the city of Boise finally came to us and asked us if they could do a pilot project, which they really haven't gotten too far into the weeds about, because I don't know if they expected to get a yes or a no, but they're going to put some of cameras at their expense onto some of the mast arms or in certain intersections in downtown Boise, out there at Vista and Overland, maybe in a few other places, and try this out. You've heard from me and many of your other listeners about how absolutely ridiculous the situation is with red light runners right now. I mean, I can sit at Franklin and 10 Mile and watch 4 or 5, well, I'll go 4 because that's the most I've been able to count. 4 vehicles run the red light absolutely after it's turned. They don't even enter the intersection till after it's turned red, and nothing's ever done. And the last time I saw that, there were 3, but there was a police vehicle, I won't tell you from which agency, sitting there at the intersection who did nothing either. And so the desire to see people run the red lights for whatever reason hasn't been dealt with. And what Lee Joe and some others don't understand about the Constitution, and this hasn't been litigated, so his interpretation isn't any better than anybody else's, but his desire to break the law with impunity is not a Fourth Amendment issue. There are other Fourth Amendment issues that I've been a part of, having been in government for a while, but I won't bring them up today. They're pretty embarrassing to the agencies that were trying those stunts. But anywho, this isn't one of them, Lee Joe. What's going to happen is that the cameras, when they do there cannot be any tickets of any kind whatsoever issued unless a sworn peace officer, whether it's a deputy sheriff, a police officer from the city of Boise, which will be that, in this case, that's what will happen. They have to look at that and ensure that they can absolutely defend the infraction that they just witnessed in court without any question before they send a ticket. They're not going to waste the time of the court. They're not going to waste the time of the city or anyone else to send a ticket that won't stick. Now, if somebody thinks that that's illegal, then they're invited to change the law. There is no law against this in the state of Idaho. At least that's what we've been told, and
Yes,
we have
sir.
asked. I have asked personally in public meetings, and there is no law providing that it's okay to do. So that's why this is a pilot project. It may stir up the hornet's nest. I've had a couple of elected officials tell me that they are against this. They didn't say a single thing about why. They're probably feeling like Lee Joe, and that would be embarrassing for me to say that.
Okay.
But go ahead.
No, I appreciate that, and we're going to have a further discussion on this. Do you have any time to join us tomorrow on this?
Sure.
Okay. 9 o'clock tomorrow, does that work for you, or 7 o'clock?
That's fine. Now you can line up 3 or 4 people to get on with you and whip on this, right?
That we want to tease it so we can have a proper running over the bus of you, Kent, if that's okay.
That would be okay with me.
Well, so tomorrow at 9 or 7, which is it?
Well, you'll have more people listening at 9, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, we go for 7.
All right, Kent, we will have you on at 7.
Okay, see ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Kent Goldthorpe defending red light cameras. Coming up next, the Attorney General, Raul Labrador. Good morning. Labrador, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Pretty good. You know, the media is always talking about your exploits, so we always love having you on every couple weeks.
The media loves me.
They do. They're obsessed with you. They always have been. So, what would you like to discuss? Uncensored, unfiltered, sir.
You know, I actually really enjoyed the debate. I thought that J.D. Vance did an amazing job. I thought it was great. And it's funny, I'm an old conservative. You know, I actually believe in fiscal conservatism and all those things. And there are some things that J.D. Vance believes in that he's kind of a more big government Republican than I am. But I have never seen a candidate just explain what he believes in such a deft and successful way. And he did it with a smile on his face. And it's something that I always tell conservatives. And, you know, this is an old saying, I'm a conservative, but I'm not angry about it.
Right.
And I wish more conservatives would learn that. You know, because sometimes we just appear to be so angry all the time. And it's good to be a conservative and to have a smile on your face. He almost had a little wink, you know, and a nod to the audience when he would hear the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, try to say something that was so inane and so unimpressive, and he didn't. Like, I probably would have just tried to go after him for those crazy things, and he didn't do that, and I thought that was quite effective in the way that he communicated.
Yeah, I think it's something that we haven't seen. Perhaps what George Bush II always tried to do, but wasn't nearly as brilliant as conveying that. He was a conservative, but J.D. had just the niceness about him and said, "I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for this." Really, we all, I can agree with the governor. We're going, no, don't agree with him. He's the enemy. And then you had the other side. You had Governor Walz saying that he's friends with school shooters, which he hasn't corrected, which was an odd phrase. And then he's a knucklehead.
Yeah, I mean, he did kind of correct it. There was an interview yesterday where he explained that what he meant, and I think it was obvious what he meant, that he was friends with victims of school shootings.
Yeah.
But it just showed how nervous he was. And the biggest problem that I have with Walz, and I've met people like this in my life, that they just exaggerate everything about their lives. And the stuff that they have done is not good enough. They always have to exaggerate, which tells you something about their character, and it tells you something about their ability to process ideas and to make decisions. And that's why Tim Walz should be nowhere near the White House. He should be nowhere near decisions that are being made, because he's one of these people that will always exaggerate things in a way about important things that are just not really... it shouldn't really be exaggerated. He exaggerated about his record. I didn't serve in the military, so I have a very hard time, going after somebody who served for 24 years in the National Guard. But he always had to exaggerate his rank. He had to exaggerate whether he was in war. He had to exaggerate whether he went to Tiananmen Square. And it's something that just tells you that it's just a tendency. And then I didn't know about this Tiananmen Square thing until the debate. And he just continues to, and he's just kind of an awkward, person, and he just looked really, really nervous. And it was clear that J.D. Vance was in control, that he understood what was happening, that he understood the issues. But the one that frustrates me the most is the immigration issue. Mm-hmm. The media continues to say that all these people are here legally, the Haitians and the people. And the reality is that they didn't let J.D. Vance explain what's really happening. And what's really happening is that the Biden administration created this new program where you can go on an app, and on this app, you can apply to come into the United States on TPS, temporary protected status, which is technically a legal status, but it's a legal status that is created by the president. So what they have done is they have created something that Congress gave to the president, an ability to bring people to allow people to stay in the United States. If there's a disaster of some kind in their home country, they've allowed these people to. That's how TPS was used in the past, and now they're actually letting people apply for that TPS status from outside of the country. And that's why they're claiming that these people are here legally when they're really just here illegally. They just allowed them to come in through this new created process that is not really what the law intended to do. And I think that's abominable. I think, bringing all these people into the United States they have an agenda, and I think, it's one of the main reasons that I support Donald Trump, and I hope that he wins.
As someone who has extensive experience litigating the immigration system, obviously we want to have secure borders, we want assimilation, we want a safe and strong America, and we want people that come here legally, and you've worked with them. What is your solution, and does this go back to your days in Congress?
We tried really hard when I was in Congress. We actually had a bill that would have fixed all the problems at the border, would have just sealed off the border in a way that only people who were coming here legally would have come. We would have given Border Patrol all the tools that they needed. And once all those things were put in place, then it would have allowed, at the time, this was almost 7 years ago at the time, 6 years ago, at the time, it would have allowed some of the people that were here illegally to go through a legal process that they would have been able to become residents of the United States. And that was rejected by the Democrats. It was rejected by the president at the time when I was negotiating these things. It was Obama, and I couldn't get them because it actually put enforcement first. And the problem that we have every single time that you have Republicans negotiate on immigration is that the Democrats are very smart. They put the amnesty first with promises of enforcement later. And my bill said, no. Let's do the enforcement mechanisms first, and then we can have a process for people to go through a legal immigration process. And they always reject that. And this fake bill that they just had, that the Democrats keep talking about in Congress, what it would have done is it would have actually put into law this process that we're talking about, that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are using to bring the people from Haiti and other places, it would actually enshrine that into law, and it would have made it easier for presidents, especially Democrats, to bring millions and millions of people here without proper border enforcement. And then if you listen to what they say, they keep saying that it would have allowed adjudications to go to process faster because we need to adjudicate these cases. What it would have done, it would have put all these people into the immigration judicial system, and then allowed them all to stay, because that's what they want. They want them to go through this process quickly and make them all legal. And the process of asylum was a process that we've used for years, and asylum was only supposed to be if you were persecuted in your home country. And now we're giving everybody asylum regardless of what's happening in their home country.
As a constitutionalist, our great friend, the Attorney General Raul Labrador, joining us, what do you make of DACA and the Supreme Court's decision about DACA? Again, we could speculate as fans, but you've been in the arena about DACA and the challenges of DACA.
Well, the challenge is that when we don't enforce the law, then you allow a bunch of people to be here for a long time, and then it pulls at your heartstrings, right? That these people have been here for a long time. There was actually a debate this week in Virginia between the two U.S. senatorial candidates, and Hung Cao is the Republican nominee who's going against Tim Kaine, and his family were Vietnamese refugees from the war in Vietnam. And he says something that I've never heard anybody say it in this way, and I thought it was so wise. He said, if you want to live the American dream, you should be willing to live and abide by American laws. And he said, so if your first step is coming to the United States illegally, that's not living the American dream. And I just thought that was a beautiful way to say it, is we definitely need to ensure that people that are coming here, they're coming here because if you think about those refugees from Vietnam.
Right, on the boats.
On the boat, they were coming here because they wanted to live the American dream. They wanted to live by the standards that we set in our Constitution, in our founding documents, because they were looking for that freedom that only America can provide. And now we're just letting people in here left and right that they just want a better livelihood, and they're not really willing to live by the American ethos. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, and it's a growing problem under this administration. Now, ranked choice voting, are you allowed to comment on that?
Well, I have said publicly on ranked choice, we had a lawsuit. The courts did not agree with me. I was disappointed that the courts did not agree with me. But what I can say is that it's important for people to know that there's two different things in the initiative. If you look at all the advertising from the ranked choice voting proponents, they don't even call it ranked choice. They just call it open primaries. And they say something that is really not true. They say, let's go back to the system that we had before they closed the primaries. That's not what this does. And the state Supreme Court actually said, in fact, they rejected the label of open primaries when they wanted to call it an open primary, because they said that this is not the same system that we had 12 years ago. So it's important that everybody who's thinking about voting for this, that you understand that, number one, is not an open primary system, that it is a top four system. They call it jungle primaries in other states, or a top four system for the primary. And then it has a ranked choice component in the general election. And ranked choice has so many problems that in Alaska, which was the last state that adopted it, they're going to get rid of it this year because they don't like the way it works. It's also been said by the Secretary of State that it's going to cost the state about $25 to $40 million to implement. There's all sorts of problems with ranked choice voting in the states that use it. In one city, I just read recently, one city, the person who received, I think it was 17% of the initial vote, ended up winning the election, because after you go through all the machinations of ranked choice, of ranking and trying to figure out who got what votes and who dropped off. The person who got 17% of the vote ended up winning that election. So I think people need to really consider whether we have a clean system of elections in the state of Idaho. And I think both the Secretary of State now and the previous Secretaries of State have tried really hard to keep it clean. We have the legislature has ensured that we have ballot integrity in the state. It's one of the safest states to vote in. And this system brings something new that Idaho has never had and that other states are struggling with when they have implemented it.
The Attorney General, Raul Labrador, joining us, Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So, let's go back to the closed primaries. You were involved in making that happen back in the day, right?
So when I was in the legislature, I actually wanted introduced a bill to close the primaries.
Right.
But that bill was rejected by the legislature. Then there was a lawsuit by the Republican Party, and the federal judge here in Idaho, who is no conservative, said that the closed primaries, that the Republican Party or any party can decide if they want to open or close their primaries, and that has been decided. That has been decided by the U.S. Supreme Court, that parties can determine whether they want to open or close the primaries. Now, some states have instituted this top 2 or top 4 primary initiative, and the courts so far have said that there's nothing unconstitutional about that in the primary process, but that's just a different way of selecting candidates. But just remember, this is very different. This is not just top 2 or top 4 that some states have. Louisiana, for example, is a state that you go to a primary, you pick your top 2 candidates, and the general election, it's a fight between the top 2 candidates, and then whoever gets 50% plus 1 wins that election. This is very different. You're picking a person in the primary top 4, and then in the general election, you're using ranked choice voting, which we don't, that 2 states in the whole nation use, and one of them is trying to get rid of it because it's turned out to be a big mess for them.
The Attorney General with us now. We're very informal here. So how much time do you have left? I don't want to put you on the spot.
I'm good.
Okay, fair enough. More coming up next. KIDO Talk Radio. On KIDO Talk Radio, we were talking about conservatism and the Idaho Republican Party. Obviously, it's under siege. You're in the know with folks. All these people moving into Idaho, how concerned are you about Idaho being diluted when it comes to conservatism in the Republican Party, sir?
My experience, and this is very anecdotal, I don't have any, data, any polling data on this, but my experience is that the vast majority of people that are moving to Idaho are conservative. They're leaving their states because they don't like what's happening in their states, and they want to find what they find a haven in a sea of idiocy in the world.
Right.
And I think that's why they're moving here. And it's very it's frustrating to the media, because I remember about 20 years ago, the media was talking about this flight from California to Idaho. And they were hopeful that all these people were going to bring their bad ideas from California and all these other states. And at the time, I was a little bit worried because that's when we started seeing that huge influx of people from other states. But when I go to neighborhoods, when I go talk, when I'm at Costco, when I'm at Albertsons, when I'm at, whenever I'm out there, I try to talk to people. And most of them just say, man, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so glad that Idaho is a conservative state. And the irony, and I love the media because they're always saying that, the legislature is so radical. The legislature does all these radical things, and politicians here are so radical. But yet, we continue to be the fastest growing state in the nation. We continue to be the best place to raise a family, the best place for business, all these different things, all these accolades that I actually wish the national media would stop talking, because we don't need to keep growing as fast as we're growing. But we continue to win on every single, it's a beautiful state. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to have a business. So the legislature must be doing something right. But it's all these people that live in Boise, and they all talk to their same 5 friends who don't like the legislature, and they think that everybody thinks like they do. And that's not the way Idaho is. If I've had to travel the state from north to south, from east to west, and there's so many people who just love the freedoms that we have here in the state and the ability to just be yourself. So I think Idaho is just a wonderful place to live. And it's one of the reasons that I continue to serve and do the things that I do, because I want to keep it the way that it has been for a long time.
And one of the ways, obviously, one of the most important ways is enforcing laws. I recall the ceremony for slain Deputy Sheriff Tobin Bolter, and you were there.
Yes.
What went on in your mind that day?
Well, first, it was incredible, the show of support from the community and from law enforcement people, But I mean, that's one of the great things about Idaho is that the community supports law enforcement. The community supports the laws. I mean, one of the biggest problems that we have nationally right now, the issue that we talked about earlier, immigration, is when a president says that they're not going to enforce the law, everyone knows that you can break the law. Everyone knows that you can, run to the border, you can get in, that they're going to allow you to come in, even though you don't really have standing to come in. The same thing happens in small places like states and cities and counties. If people know that you're not going to enforce the law, they start breaking the law. It's the old broken windows theory, right? That when you start seeing that broken windows are not being fixed and nobody's getting punished for it, you realize that, hey, if they don't have to abide by that law, then nobody else abides by the laws. And I think that's what's great about Idaho is that everybody knows that laws are going to be enforced. And, we could always be better, right? But we tend to go about our business and do the things that are necessary to keep Idaho a strong place to live and a strong place to raise a family. And I think that's why people enjoy it. There's a freedom that you can sense in Idaho, and you can feel it in the air, and people enjoy that and they love that. And they don't have to worry about, having to upset other people with the things that they say. They know that they're free to be themselves and to do the things that they need to do.
And then you have, obviously, the state supports law enforcement, which is very different from the states surrounding us. I mean, Utah supports law enforcement. I'm sure Montana does. But, you take a look at California, the defund the police movement. Again, as someone who has sworn an oath to protect the Constitution, it's amazing that you had people, not only in Idaho, but across the country, sir, that, want to defund the police. Okay, congratulations. You've defunded the police. Now what?
Well, and every state that kind of had that idea, and every politician that had that idea, if you see, they're not talking about that anymore, because those few cities and counties and states that decided to not enforce the law, and Minnesota is one of them, they realized that when you stop enforcing the law, then bigger things happen. And you saw the riots that happened in Minnesota. My son actually had just left Minnesota. He had graduated with a master's degree from the University of Minnesota and had been living in Minneapolis. And he said it was one of the safest cities that he had ever lived in, and it was a huge city. And about a month after he left Minnesota, the riots happened. And now, all the places that he loved in downtown Minnesota, they're boarded up. Most of the places are closed. So many ugly things happen. And there's a culture that Idaho has that is important to keep, because if we change that culture, you're going to have the same thing that happens in Seattle, that happens in Portland, that is happening in Minneapolis, that turns a place into an unlivable place. And so I just think we need to make sure that we keep that character of Idaho while we still welcome the people that are coming to the state, and hope that they understand that the reason Idaho is such a great place to live is because we're a conservative state that supports each other
Sure.
and supports the law enforcement.
Are you following any of the races across the country? Because you're a political guy. I mean, you're a great family man. You're the attorney general. I mean, but politics, you're in the arena. So do you ever follow any of the other races?
I mean, it depends. I follow some. I'm not as closely as I used to when I was in Congress because obviously many of those races were my friends that I was serving with. But I try to stay pretty up to date on some of the things that are happening nationally.
No, I was looking at, and again, I'm fascinated with this race in Montana between Senator Tester and Tim Sheehy. And you take a look at, Senator Tester, John Tester, who's been there forever. Donald Trump tried to get him out in 2018, and he's got 40 million. Sheehy's got 10, 15 million. But it's a toss-up. You were watching the Virginia race. I was watching the Montana debate the other
Yes.
night, which was very entertaining. But, you have the state Montana that, we could have had somebody like that here. And that's why Idaho is so great. But what do you make of that race at all?
It's interesting. I just watched a little bit of the debate, and I saw some of the commentary on the debate. And according to at least what I was watching, looks like Sheehy's ahead by 6 points in the latest polls, which is interesting because Tester is a very difficult Democrat to defeat because he has been so long in office and is well respected. And I've actually met Tester a few times. I've talked to him. He's a very nice guy.
Charismatic guy.
Very charismatic and kind of a good old boy, in the good sense of the word of the phrase that he's very easy to talk to and people really like him. So it's interesting to see that he's actually in some danger if those polls are correct, that he's down by 6 points. So, and that's such an important race because if we want to take over the Senate, we need to win races like this one. We can't lose these races by a small amount. So if Republicans want to take over, it's one of the most important races in the nation, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens on election night.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating when you take a look at that and some of the barbs. You've been in these high-profile debates. Heck, you were a regular on Meet the Press. It's so funny because people don't remember that your life back then. And again, being the groupie that I am, I remember that. And that was an honor and quite a challenge. But on one hand, you have Tim Sheehy going, yeah, well, when you were having steaks, I was serving my country. And then Tester coming back going, well, Tim and his big money friends buying all the land. When you go into a debate, when you're going into, whether it's talking to the reporters here or national reporters, because Idaho is such a big important place in the state, obviously, with the Supreme Court decisions. What goes on in your mind? I mean, reporters say we just want the truth, but obviously when you're conservative, there's always that unfortunate adversarial take that they always seem to have.
So when I go into a debate or even like Meet the Press or any show like that, you do a little bit of research. And I think that's why I was so effective and why they kept inviting me on shows like Meet the Press, because I think sometimes politicians just do talking points. They just their staff gives them, these are 3 things that you want to say, and that's what you got to keep repeating again and again and again. And for good or ill, and my staff sometimes looks at me and said, I wish you would follow the talking points. I just answer the question. If somebody asks me a question, I'm going to give you an honest answer about the question. But I'm also always prepared when I go into those shows. I know what the other panelists who are on the show have asked or answered about that topic that we're going to talk about. I kind of prepare like for a trial.
Sure.
where I know what everybody has said, what their positions are. And I remember one of my first times on Meet the Press, if you remember Chris Matthews.
Yes.
Chris Matthews was a big deal, for a time until he got into a little bit of trouble. And he was going to be on the show, and we were talking about, shutting down the government at one point. And he said, I can't believe that Republicans are doing this. And he went through this whole litany of things that we were asking for in exchange for raising the debt. And he said, and I said, well, you did the same thing when you were working for Tip O'Neill.
Right.
And I said, you guys did everything you're accusing us of doing. You guys did. And he said, what are you talking about? When did I do that? I said, well, I have this article here from the Washington Post that talks about all the things that you guys were demanding for raising the debt limit. Mm-hmm. And his eyes just bulged out because he couldn't believe that I had done that research. And I think that's what you do. You just make sure that you know what people are going to say and what they have said in the past when they're inconsistent.
Well, and again, unlike the liberals of today, a true liberal, Chris Matthews was.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah. And I think that's why you're seeing people like RFK Jr., like you're seeing Tulsi Gabbard, true liberals who were people. I didn't know RFK Jr., but I know Tulsi Gabbard very well. They were true liberals that I could actually have conversations with. And sometimes even agree. It's what I used to call it the wingnut coalition, when the right wing and the left wing eventually meet because they're agreeing on some civil liberties issues and things like that. And I had a lot of friends in Washington, D.C. from the left, Dennis Kucinich, Tulsi Gabbard, who were true old-style liberals that believed in the Constitution and believed in civil liberties. And I could agree with them on some issues. And this wokeism that has taken over the Democratic Party is actually endangering society, endangering our Constitution. I don't know if you saw the New Yorker just said that we have to torch the Constitution.
Yep.
And we all knew there was going to come a time where the Constitution was in jeopardy. And we are at that time. And I think that's why this election is so important.
More coming up with the Attorney General next. Kevin Miller. Attorney General, for having us, for being here with us here on KIDO Talk Radio. We very rarely take calls when it comes to the guests, but we're going to recognize the chair from New Meadows, Idaho, Tea Party Bob. Is the Attorney General your favorite Idaho politician, sir?
Well, I have to tell you, he's one of the best. I worked on three of his campaigns.
No. You can't say that. You have told me that you love the Attorney General. You've told me on this air that he is the only one that can save Idaho. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, I believe that totally. Actually, I'm kind of hoping that he'd run in the 24 election. He talks about Idaho and the liberals who have pretty much taken over the Boise area. But he forgets that Meridian used to be a very conservative and viable area of Treasure Valley, and it has itself turned very liberal, more so than I had expected in the short period of time I've been gone. He's one of the few people who actually understands the laws, who understands what's going on in the state, and who loves it as much as the people who have been here for a long time. And what we need is more of that. The unfortunate part is that we seem to keep electing people who say they're Republicans but vote like Democrats. And until that stops, we're going to continue to take 43% of our state budget from the feds, which is what's happening right now. And every time you take money from them, I think Congressman Labrador will agree, every time you take their money, you owe them something. And they do come to collect with their memorandums of understanding. And that's the unfortunate part. Little thinks he's doing good by taking this money. What he's doing is helping.
Do you have a question for the Attorney General?
Are you going to run for office?
Well, we don't want to. Well, I mean, look, with all respect to the Attorney General, and he can answer that question, but I mean, he came here to talk about policy and stuff. I mean, you're a high-speed guy. I mean, you can do that when you have a one-on-one with the Gem State Patriot. Well, come on, give us something good. Give us a policy question.
Look, the biggest policy question right now is Prop 1. And the fact that he couldn't stop this tells me there's something wrong with our courts, not necessarily with him. And I'd like to know why they're still going to put this on the voters' docket the way they had it, because it still sounds like it's not something that it really is. And are you going to be able to get any of this changed before the election or not?
So it's now up to the voters to decide. I did what I could. My job is to defend all Idahoans. I've been blasted by the media because they're like, you're not listening to the 70,000 plus people who signed the petition. And I'm like, no, I'm listening. I'm looking out for the 1.9 people who did 1.9 million people who didn't sign the petition. I'm looking out for the interests of the state. I'm looking out for the reality that that our state laws say you should not misrepresent things when you're gathering signatures. So I'm trying to protect the integrity of the voting process and the initiative process. I did everything I could, and I think it's up to the voters now to decide whether they think this is a good idea or not. And I just want everybody to look into what it really did, what it's doing in Alaska, what it's doing in Maine. I'll tell you a story, Kevin. I had a really good friend in Washington, D.C. His name's Bruce Poliquin. He was he makes Mike Simpson look like a conservative. So he was a Republican who was just very, very, very left of center, but he was one of the nicest people that you would ever meet, that you could ever meet. If you hear all the people that are advocating for Prop 1, they're saying that we just want to get rid of the radicals, right? That's what they keep saying. Bruce Poliquin makes me look like a radical. He's one of those people who's just so nice, very left of center. He was the nicest guy. The first person who was defeated in a congressional race by something similar to Prop 1 was Bruce Poliquin. They got rid of him, and they also said that Prop 1, the ranked choice voting, was going to bring better elections, more mature elections, people that weren't disagreeing and yelling at each other. They did a number on this poor guy where they try to say that he was one of the most conservative, he was going to destroy America. So look at the history of what ranked choice voting has done in Maine and has done in Alaska before you go to the voting booth. And
thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate you being along the conservative ride in today. Let's go to our great friend, Brandy Sundell from Stanton International, Stanton Health. How are you, ma'am?
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me on your show.
Boy, it's been a while. You know, I think you should change your name to Brandy Stanton. I almost made that thing Brandy Stanton. And I go, no, that's not her name.
Can I tell you, a lot of people do that. It's funny. A lot of people do that. I don't mind.
Yeah. You know, I'm always, when people get a lot of attention, I'm always wondering, how this happened behind the scenes. So many people may or may not know that one of the most progressive publications in America, Cosmo, featured you years ago. It seems like it was just yesterday, and it wasn't really a hit job, or did I miss something on that when they did that profile of you?
No, Kevin, I'm so glad you brought that up. Can you believe that was 2016 when that came out? And and it was actually, Cosmopolitan would be, definitely more progressive, liberal, kind of, pro-choice type of a publication. It's a woman's magazine type thing. And they sent a reporter out to tour Stanton Healthcare, our life-affirming women's medical clinics, our one there in Boise. And she was with us for 2 or 3 days, interviewed staff, met with our clients, and wrote a 6-page article that was absolutely incredible. I mean, I couldn't have written it better myself. And it really was honest and non-biased and really shared the heart of our work and our clients. And, it was sprinkled with a few, pro-choice things here and there, which is fine, but it was a really good piece that represented us very well. We were very happy with it.
Yeah, for most of us that will never have that man-to-man coverage, what was that like having someone shadow you and then they'd say, okay, Brandy, we're going to go talk to this person, that person, and you couldn't choreograph it if you wanted to, but that's really opening yourself up.
It really is. It's always a risk when you invite a reporter into, your facility or into the work that you're doing, because sometimes, you can't always trust everybody. And sometimes there's a nefarious motivation or a biased agenda. And on this one, we were very thankful. We had this reporter was pro-choice. She was very open about that. But she gave us a fair shake. And what was really special, Kevin, is you can't orchestrate, things when a reporter comes in. And in fact, you never want to do that. And we're so confident in the work that we do and the women that we serve and the families we serve, we knew that our work would speak for itself and it would shine, especially if it was reported properly. And so that's what happened. And I have to tell you, there was a really special moment when this reporter was talking with one of our Stanton moms in our baby supply room as she was picking out baby supplies, baby clothes for the week for her little baby. And the client started just sharing some very heartfelt things about how Stanton had helped her. And it was so moving that the client started getting teary-eyed. And I look over and the reporter's getting teary-eyed because it was so genuine and it was so authentic. And there's no way this reporter could say anything negative about the work that we do.
And that is something, before we get into, again, Stanton in the news and everything else, for people that aren't familiar with your organization, Brandy, as you know, so many people moving into your homeland, your native land, Idaho. Tell us a little bit about Stanton. A lot of people want to help, and obviously Stanton is such a great organization to be a part of, to really make a difference from the very beginning.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for the opportunity to share and for always believing in our work and standing with the women and children we serve. So Stanton Healthcare, in a nutshell, we are a life-affirming women's medical clinic that specializes in serving women facing unexpected pregnancies. So teen moms, single moms, women from marginalized communities, refugee communities, or any woman of any age or background that is seeking well woman care, physical, mental, spiritual well-being surrounding their pregnancy. And so we provide quality medical care and services. We are a licensed, credentialed medical clinic. We provide tangible resources and wellness classes like Mommy and Me classes, labor and delivery classes, life coaching, pregnancy coaching. We have a baby boutique that has maternity clothes and beautiful handmade baby dresses and baby supplies. And we serve thousands of women on an annual basis, and we have 3 clinics, one in Meridian, our Stanton Healthcare Clinic, one in Boise, our Stanton Wellness Center, where we do a lot of our classes, and then we have our Stanton Mobile Clinic that goes out to rural communities and underserved communities. And it's just a beautiful outreach. We don't charge for any of our services, and we're really providing a great service to the women of Idaho.
And Brandy, if people want more information, what can they do?
Yes, please go to our website, stantonhealthcare.org, stantonhealthcare.org, and you'll get a lot of information about what we do, who we are. We're always looking for volunteers, financial supporters, people who are Stanton ambassadors, and spread the word about our work. And we're just really, we could not keep our doors open without the community support. We don't take any government funding, no state funding, no federal funding. It's all through private donations, volunteer hours, and support from the community.
And of course, the Catholic Church, as I'm sure other churches do it, where you have the baby bottle fundraiser every year too.
Yes, we love our annual baby bottle fundraiser. We do that every spring, and we now have over 70 churches,
wow, including
Catholic parishes, evangelical churches, that participate in our Valley-wide baby bottle drive. And we go to the churches. We have teams that go out. It's on one Sunday every spring. We give a 10, 15-minute pro-life presentation on the work of Stanton Healthcare, testimonies of the women we serve, and a beautiful video. And then at the end of the service, we hand out baby bottles, empty baby bottles, and encourage people to take them home for 3 weeks, fill them up with spare change, cash or a check, and then bring those bottles back. And that's really our primary fundraiser of the year. And it's pretty amazing. We have kids take home baby bottles, and parents and families, and just everybody loves participating. And we'll get bottles full of change, and then we'll get some checks in there for, thousands of dollars. And it's been a great blessing to use that baby bottle drive, and really so that women know that they're not alone when they're facing an unexpected pregnancy, and that there is an entire community that is standing with them.
Our great friend Brandy Swindell joining us from Stanton Healthcare. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. We've talked about the Dobbs decision and what it's meant for Idaho, and I know that you and the other pro-life groups really worked really hard for the trigger law to make that a resounding success. How has Stanton Health's life changed, considering you had Planned Parenthood throwing a fit when you guys would open up the crisis pregnancy centers in Boise and in Meridian, offering people a choice. Have they left the state, and how has that changed for you guys and crisis pregnancy centers in general?
Well, so since Roe was overturned and through, the Dobbs decision, we have certainly seen an increase in our client load and women seeking our services. And so we've been ready for Roe to be overturned. And in many ways, our work has not changed. Our mission is the same. It was the same before Roe and the same after Roe was overturned, right? And our focus is always on meeting the needs of women and making sure that they have the support that they need to confidently carry their baby to term and either keep that child or place that baby for adoption to a beautiful family. And so our mission on one level has not changed. But since Roe was overturned, certainly our client load has increased, and we've seen beautiful outcomes in the services and programs we're able to provide to women. One thing that has been very significant, Kevin, since Roe was overturned, is that the abortion industry is very, very angry, and it feels as though they're almost out for blood. And one of the areas that they're going after specifically is the pregnancy center movement and centers like Stanton Healthcare. We've been sued by Planned Parenthood. That was pre-Roe, before Roe was overturned, before Dobbs. And thankfully we won that lawsuit. The judge dismissed it. But they've always been trying to sort of hassle us in the work that we try to do, which ultimately is not harassing or hassling us or bullying me personally. It's bullying the women we serve and trying to prevent them from accessing quality life-affirming care. But specifically, since the Dobbs decision came out and the ban went into place in Idaho, the abortion industry has been attacking us. They've been trying to shut us down. And most recently, Kevin, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you and your listeners about today. It's a really important conversation. The Idaho Medical Association is looking at passing a resolution this weekend. In fact, the IMA conference is this weekend, starts today, and the resolution is being proposed and authored by a very radical pro-abortion doctor here in the state of Idaho. And she is trying to pass a resolution that would restrict and prevent the work of Stanton Healthcare and life-affirming clinics throughout the state of Idaho. And what they're proposing to do is, number one, prevent the Idaho legislature and the people of Idaho, the good people of Idaho, from ever supporting the work of pregnancy centers. And so in this resolution, they want to mandate that the Idaho Medical Association will lobby. They're really kind of a lobbying group during the session, that they would lobby against any bill or legislation that would support the work of pregnancy centers. So that's a bullying tactic right there. I don't know who the IMA thinks they are, that they get to dictate what clinics get to operate and which ones don't, or which ones get funding and which ones don't. Second of all, in the resolution, they attempt to completely diminish the character of pregnancy centers. And if I have a second, Kevin, the statements they make are so defamatory that we've actually reached out to our legal team about it. Go ahead.
Brandy, we're going to do that. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get your reaction. And again, it's like old home day with you here on KIDO Talk Radio. But a lot of people don't know that Elizabeth Warren really targeted Stanton and other crisis pregnancy centers, and what it's like to be in the crosshairs. Our great friend Brandy Swindell, not Brandy Stanton, although I do love that name, Brandy Stanton from Stanton Healthcare is with us. We will talk to her and take more of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Stanton, although that could be like a superhero name, Brandy Stanton. But anyway, I get distracted. For a lot of folks, though, when we left the last segment, we were talking about Elizabeth Warren after the Dobbs decision. And, she's no spring chicken. She's no lightweight. When she starts saying we need to stop crisis pregnancy centers, as someone at the forefront of this movement, not only in Idaho, but especially around the world and around the country, what went on in your mind, and how do you battle one of the most powerful liberals in Congress?
Oh, Kevin, I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's one of my best memories of how we stood up to Elizabeth Warren, because you're right. She's, she carries some weight when she speaks, especially in certain circles, and she's very extreme on her radicalized abortion beliefs. And so when Dobbs came out, Roe was overturned, she was one of those people just full of vitriol and angry, and she decided to turn it on pregnancy centers around the nation and said that we should be shut down. If we don't recommend and advertise for abortions, we should be fined $100,000. She said on national media platforms that we're fake clinics. So our team discussed it, and we shared these comments with some of our clients. And Kevin, the biggest offenders of our work, it's the clients we serve. It's the women. It's the Stanton moms who have been helped through the work of Stanton Healthcare. And so 3 of our moms said, we want to use our stories. We want to fight back. What can we do? So we flew to Washington, D.C. with 3 of our Stanton moms and their babies, and we went right to Elizabeth Warren's office. And our campaign was Not Fake to Me. And our clients basically were saying, Senator Elizabeth Warren, look into our eyes and look into the eyes of our Stanton babies and tell us that we received fake care from Stanton Healthcare, which, of course, Elizabeth Warren can't do. Our Stanton moms did a beautiful job. They read their letters and their stories to the staff of Elizabeth Warren and talked about how they didn't receive fake health care. They didn't receive fake ultrasounds. They didn't receive fake diapers. They didn't receive fake baby formula. The list went on and on and on of all the tangible resources and real life-affirming health care that they received that changed their life and saved the life of their child. And you know what, Kevin? You can't argue with that, even if you're Elizabeth Warren.
I certainly agree with you, and we admire their courage and your courage. Brandy, I know there are certain things you want to get across, so I'll save my final question for some issues that you want to share with us here on KIDO Talk Radio.
Well, thank you, Kevin. You have such a wonderful platform, and you're always so generous to share it when something really important comes up, and Stanton is facing something pretty important, and our moms are facing something pretty important, and we need the urgent help of your listeners, and we're trying to create awareness. As I was saying a little bit earlier in the previous segment, the Idaho Medical Association, which, by the way, I do want to clarify, is made up of a lot of wonderful medical professionals and doctors throughout the state of Idaho. But like any organization, they can be infiltrated by extremists, and that's sort of happening right now. There's some very radicalized pro-abortion doctors that are trying to push a resolution to prevent the work of pregnancy centers like Stanton Healthcare throughout the state of Idaho. And they're using this resolution process to try and prevent the Idaho legislature from ever supporting the work of Stanton Healthcare. And they are trying to diminish our work by making very false and defamatory statements about who we are. Kevin, in this resolution that they're going to discuss today, actually, and we're sending our director of clinical services, Samantha, she's a physician assistant, to speak on behalf of our organization and on behalf of our medical doctor and several other doctors throughout the state of Idaho that are life-affirming and believe in pregnancy center work. She's going to speak and oppose this legislation today, this resolution today. And they may be, if it doesn't get pulled today, they may vote on it on Sunday. And this resolution says that we're fake clinics. It says we're not. It says that centers like Stanton aren't credentialed. Kevin, we are third-party accredited, which means we have more accreditation than even Planned Parenthood does. We have the same medical credentialing that urgent cares have throughout the valley, primary health cares. We have the exact same third-party accreditation, which means we have a very high standard of medical excellence. It actually takes 2 years to get this accreditation, and we got the accreditation and passed with flying colors. We have a medical director that's an OBGYN. He's been an OBGYN for over 30 years. I mentioned Sam, our director of clinical services, who's on site. We have credentialed registered nurses. We have credentialed sonographers. We have incredibly wonderful trained client advocates that go through a rigorous training process. We adhere to all licensing standards here in the state of Idaho. We are a reputable clinic that provides phenomenal care. So that's lie one in the resolution. They say that we manipulate women and give false information. Completely untrue. Women, when they seek our services, they know that we're life affirming. It's posted in our waiting room that we don't provide, refer, or recommend abortions. In the paperwork they sign, the intake paperwork, it says we are life affirming at Stanton Healthcare. We don't provide, refer, or recommend abortions. And our waiting rooms are full, and our exam rooms are full, Kevin, because women seek life-affirming care when they're facing an unexpected pregnancy. There's a false argument out there that every woman facing an unexpected pregnancy automatically wants an abortion. So, and there were many other lies. And Kevin, the lies are so false and defamatory. We've reached out to our legal team, and if this resolution moves forward and gets passed on Sunday, we are looking at legal options because this is designed to prevent the work of Stanton. And you know what, Kevin? This isn't simply an attack on me or an attack on Stanton Healthcare. Ultimately, this is an attack on the women we serve. This is anti-woman, and this is anti-healthcare.
Our great friend Brandy Swindell joining us here from Stanton Healthcare. Kevin, middle of the morning. And I have my one big question for you in a moment, but, I think a lot of us don't understand the cost and expense when you have to go to court that takes away from the most precious care that you provide to these mothers and to these babies. That can't be expensive, and regardless of who we are, lawsuits at the very minimum are very stressful.
They're stressful and they're distracting. And you're right, there's expenses, the time. Our work is already intense because we put all of our efforts, all of our resources, all of our time into providing the absolute best care to women and children in need in our community and throughout the state and beyond. And that's where all the energy needs to go with our volunteers, our medical staff. It all needs to go towards pouring into the lives of these women that we serve who are seeking our services. And so these lawsuits, they're distracting, they're bullying attempts, they're harassing. And so, we want to avoid any type of legal action. But when it comes to trying to prevent women from seeking the services we provide, we have to fight that. And so, again, our hope is that the leadership of the IMA, the good doctors within the Idaho Medical Association and other medical professionals see this resolution for what it is, that it's extreme, that this doctor presenting it, who is very pro-abortion, that she is acting as a lobbying arm of Planned Parenthood in the abortion industry, and that, the Idaho Medical Association should be supporting diverse healthcare and life-affirming women's healthcare. They shouldn't be restricting it and dabbling in it in any way. So we're hoping and believing that the good doctors within the IMA oppose it. And I want to ask your listeners right now, reach out to the IMA and let them know you oppose this resolution that would restrict the work of pregnancy centers. And if you want it, Kevin, I have the number if people want to call the IMA and stand with Stanton and oppose this resolution.
Sure. Please go ahead, Brandy.
Okay, so your listeners can call, and I'm really inviting your listeners to do this. Again, not for me, not just for Stanton and other pregnancy centers. Do this for the women of Idaho. They can call 208-344-7888. So it's 208-344-7888. And just leave a message and let the IMA know that you stand with Stanton, you stand with the pregnancy centers of Idaho and the women of Idaho, and you oppose any resolution that would restrict the work of pregnancy centers. The actual resolution number is 10524. Resolution number 10524. And Kevin, I know we're running out of time, but I have messages from a few of our clients that they wanted me to share with you and your listeners and to the doctors of the IMA that express how much our clients and our Stanton moms love Stanton Healthcare and the care that we provided to them, and how troubled they would be if a resolution like this passed.
How can I really say no to you? But if you can give me, a couple, and I'll save my question for the next time, and there will be a next time, but obviously this is very important, Brandy, so please go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. This is from Audrey, and she wanted me to share this with you and with your listeners. Hi, my name is Audrey, and I am a 24-year-old mom of two. I first went to Stanton Healthcare after I found out I was pregnant with my eldest daughter. When we found out we were pregnant, we were incredibly scared. I initially heard about Stanton through a radio ad. My husband and I know with confidence that God led us to Stanton. In a season of life where everything felt uncertain, Stanton was there to support us. From the moment we walked in, we felt welcomed and cared for. We were provided with all the information needed throughout my pregnancy. They provided ultrasounds where we got to see our precious daughter. Even after my daughter was born, they continued to support us as we struggled through seasons of financial difficulty. And Stanton is the reason that my daughter remained fed and healthy. They have provided us with formula, diapers, wipes, and so much more, all at absolutely no charge. The guidance that Stanton has given us throughout our pregnancy and beyond has built our confidence as parents. And I challenge anyone to look into my beautiful daughter's eyes and tell her that the care she received was not real. Stanton and other pregnancy resource centers like it are very real to the moms and children who have received care from them. I pray that above all, your eyes are open to the importance of these support centers in our community. My story is not unique. Daily, countless women face unexpected pregnancies. Many women are in far worse positions than I was when I found Stanton. And with the support of Stanton and other pregnancy resource centers, these women are able to raise our next generation with confidence. Thank you, Stanton Mom Audrey. Is that amazing, Kevin?
It is, and that's the difference that Stanton Healthcare makes. Brandy, one more time, your website and the phone number, please.
Absolutely. StantonHealthcare.org. StantonHealthcare.org. Our phone number is 208-855-5095. And again, call the Idaho Medical Association. Tell them that you stand with Stanton and pregnancy centers throughout Idaho and the women of Idaho, and you oppose any resolution that would restrict the work of pregnancy centers. And that number is 208-344-7888.
Brandy Stanton, Brandy Swindell, thank you.
God bless you, Kevin. Appreciate you, and I'll give you a call next week and give you an update.
We'd be more than happy to have you back, ma'am. Take care.
All right. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. All right. Coming up next, how you can help our friends at the Idaho Humane Society and, of course, our friends at Stanton Healthcare. KIDO Talk Radio. You dear, appreciate that. Got a little cold here. Nothing to worry about. The mission continues. Lucille, hang on. We are going to get to you and give you all the time in the world. First, Christine Schellhaus joining us from the Idaho Humane Society, one of our favorite groups that does so much. Christine, thank you for your patience. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? I guess you got a cold, huh? That's not great.
Well, you know how it is, though. The real people that work outside and, the real people that work with you, they drive on. So we're trying to honor their spirit. But you've got
just keep going. That's right.
Well, thank you. And you have a big event going on. Now, before we get to that, I know you all are helping out the animal shelters. You are the Humane Society for the entire state of Idaho. Obviously, you're doing some work with the West Valley. How is all that going, and how can people help you?
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge for us because the Caldwell shelter was pretty near closing, and they had so many animals. They just were living in crates in their hallways, and they were double kenneled, and it's not good for the people who work there or the animals that are in the building. And so we never want to see any kind of situation like that happen. So we've stepped in. I think we've taken almost 200 animals. I know we just took in another load yesterday. And so we have closed our doors temporarily to transfers outside of Caldwell. Normally we're transferring animals all across Idaho every single day into our shelter. And so this way what we're doing is focusing on really turning over and helping their shelter get on their feet again, retraining their employees. We opened up their adoption so that people can walk in now and adopt instead of having to make appointments. We're removing barriers. So if you have a stray pet, you can actually just walk down there and go get your pet instead of having to fill forms out and make appointments to pick your pet up. And we've taken a great number of their animals to do surgeries on, just including spays and neuters, and any, urgent care that comes to their doors. They started opening up again for injured cats and sick cats, which they were formerly closed off to. So lots of really wonderful progress coming along, but, we still have a long way to go in order to get them really where they need to be. But we're super excited about the progress we've made. I think their employees are excited. We are not formally in charge of West Valley Humane Society. I just want to make that clear. They're their own entity. We're in there we made an agreement with Best Friends Animal Shelter. So Best Friends is providing some funding to West Valley to help them through this speed bump in the road. And we are just trying to be there in a leadership position to do what we can to help.
No, I totally agree with you. And as you know, whatever we could do, well, it's such a great event. And, over 30 years in the Treasure Valley, and all that money goes to help fund the Idaho Humane Society, of course, to allow you to help other shelters like our friends in Caldwell. Christine, obviously, what else can people do to help?
You know what? We really are desperate for pet food. So we have absorbed all of the people from Canyon County in our pet food pantry. And our pet food pantry used to distribute about 3,500 pounds a month in pet food. And we have doubled that every single month. And so we are really desperate to help get pet food. And the reason we have our pantry is we want to see pets stay in their loving home. We understand that people are hitting a financial speed bump in life, and we want to be able to help keep those pets fed. So if you are involved with a church, a school, or any kind of group, or even your work team, and you want to host a pet food drive, we have a way that you can get involved. You can just click on our support tab. There's a drop-down box, and then you can fill your information out. We'll even come pick up the pet food from you when you're done. So we would love to see this winter tons of groups and organizations supporting pets in the Treasure Valley by just asking their friends and family, and maybe even hosting a little friendly competition between groups to do a pet food drive.
Well, Ed, obviously, you and I have been talking about this, so I'm saying this on the air, so please hold me to this. We will be in touch to do that, not only in the fall, but throughout the winter. That's the least we could do. And I know you don't like getting up early, but we'd love to come back to your facility. Look, listen to me. I don't love getting up early, but we would love to come back to your facility and
well,
really.
We'd love to have you.
Well, thank you. And really, it's you, me, and the security guard. We don't even have the tech anymore, so it'll be very exciting for all of us. However, it is so important. Your website, and again, see Spot Walk, obviously, but food drives. Do you need volunteers? Anything else that people could do to help you?
Even $5 a month really makes a difference. It all adds up truly, because when Betty White had passed and everyone had given $5 in remembrance of her, we made over $37,000. So if people set up a $5 auto pay each month to just donate to our charity, you can sign up on our website, idahohumanesociety.org, and set up just a $5, $10 a month donation. We will move mountains with that money. It will give us so much funding to just change lives for animals in need.
Well, Ed, I want to thank you, the volunteers and the staff, not only at your facility, but throughout the state of Idaho, throughout the country. You guys really have a servant's heart. So, Christine, thank you. And, as you know, I'm a big admirer of your work and what you guys do. So thank you again.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, our great friend, Christine Schellhaus, joining us. Help out the Idaho Humane Society. Again, we want to thank our friends, Treasure Valley Subaru, that are working with those folks as well. God bless them, and please do what you can. Let's go to our friend Lucille, who's been very patient. We appreciate you, young lady. Thank you for joining us, and good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Got a cold, have you?
Yes, I get the older I get, I guess the more colds I get. But thank you for noticing. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I hope to get better, Kevin. Seriously, I just wanted to thank you for giving Brandy a voice. She is an admirable woman. I want to thank her for giving a voice to little children little unborn babies who do not have a voice, who are defenseless and cannot plead for their own lives. So I want to thank you for that, Kevin. And I am astonished that Planned Parenthood would actually go against these people. Nobody goes against Planned Parenthood, Kevin. Why do they have to go against? I mean, those are the real threat to our democracy because they do not allow dissent. And a democracy thrives on different opinions. And I couldn't help being, amused by Elizabeth Warren, who says that Brandy's organization manipulates women. And what does Planned Parenthood do? They manipulate women. It's your body. It's your power. No, your body's carrying another little body. Oh, no. According to, Planned Parenthood, Brandy's organization gives out false information. Oh, indeed. And what does Planned Parenthood do? Oh, it's just a clump of cells who can't fend for themselves, so you can get rid of it. No, it's not just a clump of cells. It is a human life. And if it can't fend for itself, it's because you don't let it. Incidentally, Elizabeth Warren's brain is also a clump of cell who does not seem to work very well. So are we to get rid of it, Kevin? I hope not.
Well,
I'm not advocating for that.
And you look at Brandy Swindell, who for years has, championed this organization. It's just amazing that it started here in Idaho. And I can remember when Planned Parenthood was trying to run them out and all sorts of things. And now you have, what the question I didn't get to ask her was that you have the major medical establishment aided by the media that are, saying that all the doctors are leaving Idaho.
And who is giving the false information, Kevin? Who is misleading? Projection, projection, projection. That's all they do. And you know what, Kevin? I want people to understand this very well. They are the real threat to democracy because they do not allow dissent. They do not allow differing opinions. They do not allow people to do that. Tell me, Kevin, who stands against Planned Parenthood physically in the sense of saying, you can't do this, we're going to close you. People who go and pray in front of it, those are not threat. They are threatened by the pro-choice people who beat them up and take them to prison. So who really here is a real culprit, Kevin? You tell me.
Well, you're right. And then you have the Biden administration throwing people in prison, fathers for praying outside Planned Parenthood.
Exactly. And if that is not the epitome of a dictatorship, I don't know what is. Imprisoning people for speaking their mind, for just praying outside. It's not that they're picketing, it's not that they're shouting, insults at Planned Parenthood, they're praying. That is the epitome of dictatorship, Kevin, imprisoning people for speaking their mind. And those are the real threat to our democracy, and that is why it is imperative that we, defeat these people in November. Please, I beg my fellow Americans, please go out and vote Conservative. Do not be complacent. Do not be complacent. Do not think that bad things cannot happen in the United States and in Boise. Look what's happening in the UK, Kevin. People are getting in prison for speaking their minds.
Oh, I agree. Lucille, thank you for the call. Quick break. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Boise, it's our own Lee Joe, not to be confused with his given name, Leroy.
Oh, there you go. In response to Ken Goldthorpe, calling me some kind of a scofflaw and what have you, just, if you're willing to surrender your rights for security, we've been warned about that by the Founding Fathers.
If you're willing to bend the knee is what you're saying. Bend the knee.
Exactly. Bow to your masters, which goes immediately to an incident I had 5 minutes ago with two highway patrolmen here down on Warm Springs. I've got a job up there, and they've shut the road down. And the first thing they do is start yelling and saying, "You can't get through here unless you're a federal contractor, and we're going to arrest you for obstructing," and blah, blah, blah. It's like all the videos you see of thuggery and abuse, and it's two highway patrollers just doing their job. Well, that's not what they're doing. They're power tripping. That's what these two guys right this minute are doing, is power tripping.
So they started yelling at you?
Absolutely. And it was like the first thing. I said, "Hey, I've got equipment up there that I want to make sure is out of the path of the fire. Unless you're a government contractor, you turn around or I'll arrest you for obstructing." Oh, well, there you go.
What's the deal with why everybody's got to be a tough guy? I guess I gave up being a tough guy after 89, so I don't know.
They're young and dumb, and that's how that works. And they're state employees, so they're there for the pension, not to do the job.
So they're state troopers?
So, yes, these are state troopers.
Well, the colonel used to listen, but he retired, so I don't know if the new colonel listens.
I don't know either, but it's just disgraceful watching guys like this, do their big macho power trippy thing. And this is what I'm talking about.
Well, I think it's because you were
training problem.
I think it's because you were intimidated by them. They were much more manly than you.
Oh no, that's not how that worked out. I spoke my mind.
I know. Oh, did you? What did they say to you? And what was their response when you said that?
Well, I explained to them, I have equipment that I want to get away from the sagebrush and stuff so that we don't lose it. And that's it. They're over the top right now. You can't explain anything to them. It's their way or the highway, and they will be obeyed.
Fighting with Mike Tracy, but alongside Mike Tracy, Idaho's premier political consultant, in my opinion. Mike, great to have you with us on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, Kevin, it's always good to be on with you.
Well, Mike, I can't wait to delve into what you think about politics and take us behind the scenes of all the big action. But if people are looking for someone that can help them, that can guide them, whether it's a business campaign, whether it's a political campaign, you're a veteran of both. What would you do? How can people reach out and get a hold of Mike Tracy?
The easiest way is for them to call or text me at 208-863-3940. That's the absolute best way to get a hold of me, 208-863-3940.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate Mike Tracy being here. Let me throw you off, and you're going to, oh, gosh, I'm up early, and this guy, I just got done with my workout. He's going to throw me off. I promise not to do it too much, but a lot of us are feeling fatigued. We can't wait for these elections, and then we can't wait for them to be over, and then we can't wait for them to start up again. What's it like for people like Mike Tracy that are involved in the Harrison-Trump campaign or even the ranked choice voting campaign in the state of Idaho? What's that like right now for them?
Well, it's exhausting. If they've been behind the scenes and working for whether it's a campaign or an issue, campaign for a client, they've been leading up to this last 60 days, this last 30 days, and these are the last really intense days of the campaign. And the campaign workers are pretty wore out, but they're also very excited about getting to election day and having the ability to say, okay, we know that this is the end, and that's the thing that is always surprising is what the finality feels like when you get to November 5th and then November 6th. That finality is really something that you look forward to. But leading up to that, you've been working on this as a full-time job plus lots of overtime. And I know because I worked on enough campaigns to know how many days and how many hours and blood, sweat, and tears you put into a campaign. And I've worked on some campaigns that have lasted for a year and a half. So you can imagine the intensity of those campaigns and really working with somebody who is dedicated and willing to do the work. A candidate's willing to do that. And I've done one of those recently, and it's exhausting. It really is. And, if the candidate's willing to do that, whoever's working with the candidate needs to be doing that as well. So it can be exhausting, especially when you're trying to do other things besides the campaign. But if you get involved in a big campaign like a governor's race or something along those lines, a U.S. Senate race, you pretty much take that on full time. So I would say exhaustion is what a lot of people are feeling at this point.
Yeah, and Mike, that's where some people could make mistakes. I don't know if you heard about this. It happened overnight, but you had Kamala Harris drinking a Miller High Life. As a person who loves politics and has made his living in politics with Stephen Colbert, what do you make of her announcing her love for Miller High Life as her beer of choice?
Well, I actually saw the clip, and I didn't think much of it. It's trying to make her the regular Joe, the regular person, I guess. I didn't think much of it at all. Why would you try to pretend to be something that you're not? Like politicians always do that and step outside their path and the road that they're on and try to take on things that just doesn't suit them. And that's what that looked like to me. Is you've never seen anything like that before. People who are trying to be a regular Joe have tried that tactic a lot over the years, and with some people it works and some people it doesn't. It didn't really work that well last night.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder about the silliness of it all, and that she carries a Glock, and does that really matter, Mike? She said she carried a Glock, and then the next part of it should be what kind? What kind of Glock? And have you used it? And have you been trained on it? Those kinds of things. It doesn't really matter. I mean, people don't. This is a Second Amendment country. Anybody should be able to own a gun legally, and those who have them legally, great. Those that have them illegally, they shouldn't have them. It's as simple as that. And for her to make this big statement about her having a gun, it doesn't seem to be of any real benefit to anyone other than her trying to make herself, again, look like a regular person because she carries a gun or if she has a gun. She didn't say whether she carried it or not. She just said she had one. And you wonder what kind she might actually have and what it is if she doesn't even know what the numbers are behind it. So I don't think that kind of stuff makes much sense at all. And I would just say, let's not talk about those things that are not relevant to the campaign you're trying to make yourself look better simply by hanging these little tropes around me and say, see, I'm a regular person. No, she's not. Mike Tracy joining us. The big movement in Idaho, obviously, is this ranked choice voting. Besides the people that you know and you know very well, are people really into this issue, do you think?
I think there's some people that are really into it. Obviously, the people who are promoting it are really into it. They're spending a lot of money to try to get it passed. But it's going to be really far down on the ballot. And, I think I mentioned to you before that not a lot of people really know how to vote on this thing because they don't really understand it. And when they get down to that, it's going to be either at the end of the ballot or very close to the end of the ballot. There's going to be a lot of what's known as an undervote. If people don't know what it is or care about what it is, they're not even going to fill that box in. And they'll just leave it going leave it blank. That kind of thing happens all the time with people voting. At the very top of the ticket, you've got the president, and then as they go down the ticket, they vote on fewer and fewer as they go through the ballot. And sometimes you can have, at the end of the ballot, you can have as much as 70% undervote, meaning 70% of the people that of the ballot that they filled out was less than at the beginning of that ballot. So it's a strong undervote when you've got a 3 or 4 page ballot, which we're going to have this year. And so people are involved in it, but a lot of people don't know how to vote. And the advertising that's coming out is overwhelming to people. And a lot of people just say, I don't know what this is about. And they're just going to throw their hands up. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who just aren't even going to fill out that box.
Yeah, which will be to the consternation of a lot of people that have spent a lot of time and a lot of money on this. Mike, let's get your thoughts on ranked choice voting. Do you think that it passes, and the consequences or perhaps the benefits of it if it does?
Well, I look at California and how it's worked there, and I don't think it's worked very well there. And I don't think it's worked all that well in Alaska. And I don't know the other states that might have it right now, but just the disaster that it's been in California, to me, tells me that we should lean toward not voting for it, not supporting it, because there's a lot of problems with it, and it gets rid of a lot of things that we in Idaho like to have. And for some group from the outside to come in and say, here's what you need to have, we think our way is better than your way, even though we're from out of state. We want you to change the way you're doing this so you're more like some of these other states. Well, that's not how it works. People in Idaho don't like to be told what they're going to do or what they should do. What they really want is they want a clear explanation of why ranked choice voting should be supported. I don't support it. And the biggest reasons is that the current system works. And why mess with something if it's not broke? If it's truly broke, show us what those items are that are broken, and they try to point those things out in their advertising, but it's just a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of meat to the bone when they describe why they think there should be a change. So my opinion is that it's not going to be anything good for the state, and it's going to be a lot of work to change that. It's going to be a lot of work for the legislature. It's going to be a lot of work for the Secretary of State. Not that they shouldn't do the work if that's the will of the people, but I think the will of the people is going to be one of confusion as they look at this on the ballot and say, what do I know about this? And I mean, if I was telling somebody what to do, I'd say vote no on ranked choice voting, because it is not necessarily the best thing for our state.
Our friend Mike Tracy joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's move on to a couple of other issues. And that has to be, and I'm enamored with this race in Montana. What's the difference politically between the Senate race in Montana, between Montana and Idaho, sir?
Well, Montana, it's interesting. They've had some Democrats at the helm for on and off for several years. Jon Tester has been one of those outliers where he's a Democrat senator, U.S. senator from that state, and has been there for quite a while. And he's really in jeopardy. The Republican that's come after him is up by anywhere from 5 to 7 points from what I've seen. And Tester I think he's in real trouble. I think this time around, especially with Trump on the ballot, he's going to be knocked out. And the combination of that particular race, along with the West Virginia pickup, if everything else remained the same, the Senate goes immediately over to the Republican Party, and they will be the majority. It would go from 51-49 Democrat to 51-49 Republican. So that seat's a big deal. And Montana is similar to Idaho, but not exactly like it. We are very red, and all of our constitutional officers and all of our congressional delegation have been Republicans since 1994, and that's a long time, 30 years. The Republican Party has been in charge of pretty much everything, every one of the major seats. Plus, we've had super majorities in both the Idaho House and the Idaho Senate, and which means that essentially the Democrats don't even have any kind of minority that can rustle up enough votes for anything. Montana's had enough Democrats in there to break through that, and they've had Democrat governors, they've had Tester, and they've had others that have kind of broken the mold to the western states like Idaho and Utah, and previously to Colorado. Colorado turned from red to purple to blue pretty quickly, and I worry about that for our state. And I'm hopeful that Tester is ousted this time because he's just been a vote for Chuck Schumer for the last 12, 18 years. It's time for Tester to go. And I think this new guy that's running against him has a really good chance to win.
Yeah, the Tim Sheehy race. Do you think we'll ever have a Democrat as competent as Jon Tester? And we go back to Cecil Andrus, but besides the mayors of Boise, there really doesn't seem like a lot of Democratic leaders that have any statewide appeal.
Well, that's exactly right, Kevin. There are none. We haven't seen any that have come forward, and if they do, they're going to have to work their way through the ranks and build a base. They're going to have to build a base over a long period of time. It takes time to build a statewide following or a congressional district following or a constitutional officer following where people actually trust you. And sometimes you have to run more than once before you actually win. And that's what somebody's going to have to do. They're going to have to build up a base, a voter base, a group of people that they can rely on year after year for support, and they're going to have to build that, county by county. And that's a difficult and challenging thing to do, especially for a Democrat, because there's not too many Democrat strongholds out there. You talk about Moscow, Idaho. You talk about Boise, Idaho, Sun Valley, Idaho. You've got some Democrat strongholds, but most of the rest of the states is very red, and is going to, in all likelihood, is going to stay red for a while. I don't see anything that's going to change that, except for ranked choice voting. That could change things, and it's hard to predict how it would change things here, but to me, it might make things worse and maybe jumble things so that Democrats, maybe it's the in way to an insert to get Democrats into office more easily. I just can't predict that at this point.
Our great friend Mike Tracy joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. A couple more questions for Mike before we let him bolt. Let's talk a little bit about, do you believe there should be another debate between the president and the vice president?
I've thought about that, Kevin, and I've thought about that, and I really do believe if they could get one put together quickly maybe on Fox News. I wouldn't want Trump to go on any other network other than Fox News for another debate. And it's getting too close right now. I think it's 27 days, something like that right now. If they couldn't have something together in the next week, it doesn't make sense to me for them to move forward on it. It really is almost too late. If they had started working on something a couple of weeks ago for Fox News, that would have been one thing. I think it's going to be too late to do that. But the only place I would say I would do it would be on Fox News.
And Mike, finally, a general question for you. What do you make of all the businesses that continue to move to Idaho? What do they look for, sir?
Well, I really enjoy Dave Tester, the interviews you do with Dave, because he talks about this frequently. low cost of wages, low electricity cost. We have ample water. Our infrastructure is built really well for businesses that want to move here. And that's why we've had so many move in the last 10, 15 years. And I think we're going to continue to see an influx. And not only people moving here, but that generates homegrown businesses at the same time. So while businesses are moving in, it prompts other businesses to crop up in support of that base, especially for construction. You can't outsource construction jobs. They've got to be created locally, and they're also looking at that infrastructure. What kind of construction there's available? And we have a good construction base in Idaho, and we have a lot of really talented and really are educated workforce in the building trades, and that really looks like something important to any kind of business who wants to move in here and build up a company quickly. Is that building force and the trades that are in place already in Idaho.
Mike Tracy, once again, if people want to get a hold of you, what can they do, sir? We always appreciate your time, and I know you're busy, so thank you for joining us. What can they do to get hold of you, Mike?
It's simple. They can call or text at 208-863-3940, and I really appreciate the time, Kevin. It's always good to talk to you.
We appreciate you, Mike. Take care, sir.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Don't forget our friends at Window World Boise. We appreciate them getting ready for some windows at the Miller facility. We will take you through the entire process, but if you're looking for windows, now is the time to get them before the winter. You're going to go, Kevin, I can't afford it. Look, when you're talking about saving money and getting your home nicely insulated and secure and comfy, you can't afford not to take a look at our friends at Window World Boise, windowworldboise.com. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. 5436-580 KIDO. Coming up, what it's like to live in a hurricane area, what it's like to service the local community. We'll talk to our friend, man of the world, John Mounts. He has done hurricane coverage and continues to aid in the recovery efforts throughout the Southeast, and he's a man of the world, so we're going to take a look at that. And again, thank our blessings. We are urging you to pray for those people. Just take a moment, thank God for all that we have and for all those people that are struggling, whether it's a medical struggle, a financial struggle, an emotional struggle. Just know that God is with you and that we are with you. All you have to do is, just say a prayer, Lord, please help these people. And it's just unimaginable what is going on, and the nation prepares for it. And, on the other hand, I don't know if we really need Ginger and David and everybody there at the hurricane scene. Does that really service the community? We'll talk a little bit more about that, though. The weather watchers, are we making it a sport? And is it really involved in community service? I've seen a lot of great reports, I'm sure you have as well, where you have these reporters talking to people and they've lost everything. I would hope, I guess raising awareness would be the purpose of that. And we do need to be made aware. Let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO Talk Radio Traffic. Dave Burnett is standing by. Remember our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say, stop freaking, call Beacon today. Program. You can get our podcast available anywhere out to news, talents, programmers of the world today. John, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here.
Our friend Sweet Williams says hello, along with Bo. You've got a budding fan base here, but I wish that we were talking about something on a social level, but when I'm hearing about these hurricanes and obviously Fort Myers, Tampa area, an area that you know very well, you coordinated news coverage there. You were involved in one of the largest news operations in the state, so you know all about these hurricanes. For those of us that really aren't familiar with what the Southeast is going to hit, what's that going to be like there? Have they ever seen anything like it?
They say this is probably going to be the largest one to hit the Tampa. Now they're thinking south of Tampa, more like Bradenton, but in almost 100 years. And they say you don't want to get caught up in the category. They were saying 5, now they're saying 4. But regardless of what the category is, that really only talks about wind speed. That doesn't indicate what kind of storm surge, because either way there's going to be massive storm surge. We're talking like 8, 10, 12 feet in places. So very big, what they're saying, unsurvivable, catastrophic storm surge.
Now, you've been in that area in Fort Myers. What is that like, let's say, for those of us that, have never really seen an alligator across the street from you?
It's true. It's funny. They are everywhere. Kevin, when I first moved down there and I saw a palm tree, I thought, wow, a coconut. And then after that, I was like, there's coconuts everywhere. But, yeah, it's a different world, especially South Florida. And I will tell you, I went down there a couple of years ago after Ian hit that area and just completely destroyed the Fort Myers Beach area especially. And you're looking at, hotels that are maybe 10, 12 stories high, and the first 2 floors are just pillars, like a skeleton, because the ocean washed away the interior portions of the building. Anything smaller than that was just gone entirely, like it never existed.
Well, what's it like to work, to be a part of the public service down there? Obviously, it must be a whole totally different culture, and I know you have a lot of friends there. What do you hear, and what is that like? I mean, we're watching the Weather Channel, but you lived it.
The thing is, you're always taught, normally that you got to run from this stuff, get away from it, go to a safe place. However, if your job is to report on it, you're told, look, you should be safe, but also you need to report on it. So they encourage, your employer encourages you to stick around, but be safe about it, but stick around and cover it, because the people need the information, because sometimes it's their only lifeline. We saw this just a couple weeks ago in Asheville, North Carolina, where the radio became the only lifeline for those people who all the cell towers were down, so you can't get streaming stuff. The TV stations were out. Most of the radio stations were out. Our station there in Asheville was the only one on the air for days to provide information. It became like a point where people could call in and give information. And this will be the same thing, I think, with this storm as well.
Our great friend John Mounts joining us here. Why do people live there? I mean, is it a beautiful place to live?
It is. It's a beautiful place. The weather is incredible. In January, it's like a high of 74 degrees. Now don't ask me about August because it's not pleasant then. But in the wintertime, it's a wonderful place to live. And low taxes, and no real no hills to have to climb, and it's a great place certainly to retire to. But there is this problem with the storms.
Have you ever seen any type of mass evacuation, as we're seeing right now, out of the state of Florida?
I have not witnessed anything like this when I was there. I was there for about 3 years, and we never saw anything. I never saw, the worst I saw was a tropical storm go through when I was down there at the time. But I've seen coverage of this, but I'd never witnessed it firsthand. I don't think they're doing the contraflow traffic yet, where they've turned both directions of 75, say, to where you're both going north, regardless of north or southbound. But that's a possibility they might do later today, because they're still trying to get people out of there.
Yeah, I wondered if they were going to be doing that. So let's switch to Asheville, North Carolina. You're very familiar with what's going on there. Can you bring us up to speed of the devastation and this heroic guy that's been on the air for, living at the radio station?
Yeah, Buncombe County is just absolutely, that's the county in which Asheville resides. It's an absolute, it's a loss. We're talking about like major interstates like I-40, I-26. They're talking these roads will not be in service again until late 2025. Whole portions of the road washed out. Whole parts of town. Swannanoa is virtually decimated. Black Mountain decimated. Now the downtown areas of Asheville they're coming back to life. They've got the power back on, they got the water back on, the downtown areas. But you get out from that any particular direction, and you're still looking at total devastation. No electricity, and with no power means no water, because you have to pump water up the mountain. So no running water. A lot of people are using water from streams and rivers to flush the toilet, because there's no, you can't get water, and you won't be for months. And they're saying that this is going to be a problem for a long time. They don't even have a accurate death count. They're thinking probably, just in Buncombe County, probably about 80 people have been confirmed dead, over 300 still missing. And our radio station there became kind of the clearinghouse for information on this, because people were calling in. They created this brigade. This brigade of people who was going from house to house checking, and then calling in, hey, so-and-so, we found them, so-and-so, we can't find them, but they left a note, that kind of thing. People are going to using mules to move things around, because even 4x4s can't climb these roads. There's nothing. These roads have become rivers. There's no way to get through to a lot of these places.
Now, we'll get you out on this one. You're a pretty technologically savvy guy. What does that say? Because we've been hearing about, getting rid of AM radio and the power of radio, and It's so funny, and not really, but people, talk about television. Well, if you don't have power or anything, you can't watch television. And
That's
yet
right.
radio
And,
is the lifeline to that community.
We had callers calling in and saying, this is the reason why multiple callers saying this is the reason why we need AM radio, because we were there for them, bringing that information, and every day, twice a day, and now they've gone to once a day, but a press conference, an hour long, where they have all the city officials giving updates on the situation with utilities, giving updates on the roads, where you can get water, where you can get toiletries, what restaurants are open and closed, that kind of stuff. Every single day, we broadcast that multiple times a day, and we became kind of a place where people could call in and give information, share information, also share encouragement. We'd have people call in with a banjo and sing a song or something like that. It's been incredible the amount of response that we've had from all the people throughout Western North Carolina to what we're doing and what's going to continue to be done. And that's the thing, Kevin. After this hurricane hits Florida, the eyes of the nation will probably not be paying attention to Western North Carolina. But this is going to be a story for them for the next decade, but certainly the next couple of years.
Yeah, finally, what do you think is going to happen in Florida there? You're, again, familiar with everything, and obviously people still recovering from Helene.
I was really impressed with what Rick DeSantis did after Ian and how quickly he got the Matlacha Bridge back in place, how quickly he was able to get utilities, he was able to redirect things. And, all politics aside, the whole thing with Kamala Harris saying how he wouldn't return her phone call, he is going to, I think, help that state come back fast. This is going to be bad. It's going to be a lot of wind, a lot of rain, a lot of flooding, and there's going to be some damage wherever this thing comes ashore. But I think he will turn it around fast, and you will see that state emerge very quickly from this because they know how to do it. They've been through it, and I think they will come through this one again.
John Mounts, I know you're very busy, so thank you for your time today, sir.
Sure, anytime, Kevin.
Appreciate that. Always great to hear from our friend John Mounts, what it's like to survive a tropical storm, what it's like to survive a hurricane. And, as we say, it used to be everybody's dream is to, be that voice for, during the disaster. But can you imagine just the physical and psychological challenge of being, working and on the air and all sorts of things again and again and again that these folks are going through and providing that public service. And, we live in such a disposable economy, and thankfully people aren't disposable, whether it's in Idaho or Florida or North Carolina. Speaking of disposable, the folks at Treasure Valley Subaru, Rob and the gang, they're not disposable, and you're not either. You're very special to them, especially if you're looking for a new car under $20,000. Now, people say, well, if you find one, it's probably below average, gutless, and no fun to drive. So if your budget is under $20,000, where's your best bet? You're looking for a good quality used car from a dealership that you can trust. That dealership, my friend, is Treasure Valley Subaru in the Idaho Center Pre-Owned Superstore. Because when you buy from Rob and the crew, they will take care of you, and they'll always have a good selection of pre-owned cars under $20,000. Here's a couple of examples for $19,995 or less. How about a 2014 Honda CR-V, a 2017 Toyota Highlander? Hurry if you want that one. Boy, that sounds like a good one. They even have cars for under $12,000 like these two, a 2021 Kia Sportage and an all-wheel drive 2016 Ford Eagle. Many of the best of the under $20,000 cars sell before they even get listed on the website. So Kevin Miller recommends that you go out there, walk the lot at the Idaho Center Pre-Owned Superstore at Treasure Valley Subaru and see what's available today. Treasure Valley Subaru and the Idaho Center Pre-Owned Superstore together on one giant lot at the Idaho Center Auto Mall and at TreasureValleySubaru.com. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. Again, we appreciate everybody who is trying to make the most of things, and certainly our friends at Treasure Valley Subaru. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's continue on. We go to Jason, who is now, yesterday he was in Georgia. Today he's in Florida. He is working for the power company. He is in Idaho. I don't know if he wants to mention his company, but Jason, good morning. And what the heck are you doing in Florida, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we were in Augusta, Georgia yesterday and got released from Georgia Power. And they needed us in Florida. So the governor is they're aiming for 45,000 linemen to be on standby here in Florida. So we took a right-hand turn and headed south, and now we are going to be staged up near Fort Pierce, Florida, which is just north of Orlando. It's going to be kind of on the southern third of the hurricane projected path on the East Coast. So right now it feels, the humidity and the climate here is just 180 difference, 80 degrees, and it feels like a warm, steamed towel around your body the entire time out here. But it's the calm before the storm. People here seem to be in decent spirits. They know it's coming, but you could tell they are preparing. We passed, I want to say, probably upwards of 75 National Guardsmen heading south with us on I-95. And, we all know what we're here to do, so it's just kind of like steady yourself, get here, prepare, and then we're going to go to work. But I have another friend over in the Villages, which is pretty much right in the direct path of this hurricane, and I have another buddy down here who's more on the East Coast, West Coast, north of Tampa. So we're all spread out here. We're sitting, waiting. And like that gentleman said just before me, DeSantis is doing a great job. I heard earlier on the local radio here that this is probably the most the National Guardsmen ever sent out for a hurricane, pre-hurricane. So it sounds like he's doing everything humanly possible. There is a stream heading north on 95 with traffic. And there, 5 o'clock, we went through Jacksonville. I didn't even hit my brakes. So everybody's heading north. They are heeding to the advice of the evacuation, or at least getting out of the way. So hopefully the human loss won't be big, but they're expecting 110, 100-mile-an-hour winds right in the middle of the state inland, and about 75 miles an hour winds on the east coast of Florida as of right now. But it's just the calm before the storm. It's kind of scary.
Jason, what's it like for you, and why are you doing this?
We understand as linemen how important power is there. Everything's ran off power. Like that gentleman said, you can't flush your toilet. You can't get water. You can't get the essentials, refrigerators, without that power. And it's just one of those things that, I do my job, but I have a servant's heart in the Lord, and when you see people in need and you have the ability to do something to help them, I'm just called to run towards whatever that is. Others do it for other reasons, but for the most part, it's just when you can help, do what you can. Do what you're good at, and let others do what they're good at. And I think that's the best way to get through these disasters like this. We were talking about the mules up in North Carolina. North Carolina, those Appalachians over there, those guys have been doing that for hundreds of years. And it's their culture, it's their tradition, like our Western tradition. We still pack in for elk hunting and stuff. They don't do it for elk hunting. They did it for logging, and they did it for mining and other things. But that's what they can do. So that's what they're going to do. And it's just a servant's heart. And that's how you have to go about something like this, for sure.
Well, Jason, anything else you'd like to say to us, sir? Please be very careful.
No, just keep us in your prayers. Tonight is going to be the big, it's supposed to hit the East Coast at 2 o'clock tonight at 2 a.m., which isn't great because it's obviously in the middle of the night. So we'll see how it goes. But if I can with cell service or whatever, I'll definitely try and check in tomorrow. And I appreciate you covering this. If you guys can donate blood, plasma, Good Samaritans, please do. it is going to good use, especially in North Carolina. I don't know how Florida's going to be yet. It's not bad yet here, but those in North Carolina definitely need it. I've been hearing reports of they just can't get there. Like that gentleman said, there's no road. There's mountains like Idaho City over there. And then you just come up and there's like a 75-yard swath of nothing. And I don't doubt the side-by-sides and four-wheelers can't get through there. And if they're packing in on mules and helicopters, that's about the only way. So they're going to need sources and refunds.
Well, Jason. Yes, go ahead, Jason.
Yes. Yeah, they're definitely going to need resources as far as like food and water. You know, the meal trains are going to go in there, but they got to have something to go in there with. But it's not going to be a fast process, and that's unfortunate. But I can't speak too much to North Carolina. This is all secondhand from my buddies who, one friend of mine who is there as a lineman, and there's nothing he can do, and he's just like, I can't get there. Be praying for them, and they're the ones hurting the most right now, I think.
Jason, God bless you, and please be very safe. Thank you for the call, and thank you for keeping us informed.
Yes, sir. I'll try and check in when I can. Appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Live from the scene, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. The Real America. And by the way, thank you, Tea Party Bob, saying I sound tired this morning. Thank you, Tea Party Bob. Not everybody is as spry and as jumpy as you. Anyway, and if I do sound tired, I'm sorry about that. We'll work hard to make the next 2 hours a little bit more compelling and exciting. But you contrast that with, we're hearing from Jason, a guy from Idaho who was in Augusta, Georgia, and I have friends there. Area devastated. Now they're these linemen, and of course in CUNA we have the great world-famous lineman school, where these guys are going out and hopefully the ground is secure and everybody's safe, but they're going in, literally going in. We'll talk more about that contrast next, but thank you, Jason. Thank you for all of you who work to make our lives better and safer. God bless. Kevin Miller, Beacon Plumbing, brings you Fox News. Stay with us.